All right, let's do this. Good evening, everybody. Chuck Holton here, coming to you from my balcony once again. I thought I was going to be in Tel Aviv tonight, but I actually ended up deciding to stay here in Jerusalem. And I'll go to the airport early in the morning and fly to Armenia. And then I'll stay there one day and then fly from Armenia to Thailand to cover the war for you guys over there. Be there for a couple days. And then I'll fly back to Armenia and we've got a whole lot more fun stuff coming up. So you're going to want to make sure that you are subscribed to the channel because we are that close to 200,000. We are so close, people. We are, look, I'm live right now. This is live. It is 8 o'clock at night in Jerusalem. You get to watch this absolutely live. You only will get notified about lives like this if you hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you'll get notified when it happens. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate all of you for sure. And let's see if we can push it over 200,000 to today or at the latest tomorrow, something like that. What do you think? Can we do that? And again, doesn't cost you anything. Just hit that subscribe button. Hey, let's say a word for our to our sponsors. Look, you know the headlines change all the time, and one minute there's war over here, and then it's interest rates or tariffs or stock markets sliding or who knows what. And you obviously watching this channel know how unpredictable things can be. And that's why, if you're smart, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. You diversify. And one really smart way to do that is with a gold IRA. So it's just like your regular retirement account, but instead of only stocks or mutual funds or something, you can hold real physical gold and silver, something solid. And gold doesn't depend on the stock market. It's held its value for millennia. And this isn't about panicking, it's just about preserving the value that you worked hard to build and save, no matter what the markets decide to do. And if you're close to retirement, that's something you should be thinking about. You don't want to have all of your retirement accounts in mutual funds or stocks that are going to fluctuate if the market happens to crash tomorrow, because you know there's a lot of things that could make that happen. So I use Preserve Gold because they make it easy. They help you roll part of your IRA or 401k into physical metals. And they're offering a free wealth protection guide. If you get started right now, just text the word Chuck, my name, to 50505 50505. And with a qualifying purchase, you can get up to $15,000 in free gold or silver. So diversify, stay steady, and make sure you text Chuck to 50505 today. All right. Thank you to our sponsor. Appreciate that. All right. So let's see here. You've heard the stories coming out of the mainstream media that everybody in Gaza is starving, and they, the Hamas terrorists have run a very effective PR campaign. Now, I was showing a colleague of mine today on my Telegram channel or on my Telegram app that I'm actually subscribed to a channel that is put out by Hamas. And let's see if I can find it and I'll show it to you here. Of course, it's all in Arabic. It's going to be up toward the top. Yeah, there it is. But if you get the paid version of Telegram, it will translate it into English for you. And this is what the app looks like. Okay, on my phone. Now, if I go up here and I click on the name of the channel, then I can hit. Whoop, I can hit media down here and it will show me all the media these guys have shared. And this is the kind of stuff they're sharing. A dirty kid. This is a kid with cerebral palsy that has a muscular wasting disease. He's not starving to death. He's sick. Uh, same thing. I mean, their whole channel is full of this. What happened? What happened? Their whole channel is full of that. And that's exactly where outlets like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal got the photos that they put in their articles. They go to the Hamas Telegram channel and download those pictures and then turn around and share them as if they are fact. Now, I'm going to go through some of those today, and I'm going to show you just a couple of examples of how false these claims really are. But before I do that, it's just funny to me that the UN has been saying we're not going to deliver aid because it's not safe. And Israel's like, well, we will give you safe corridors to deliver your aid. And they said, no, that would be biased. We won't deliver the aid with the help of the IDF because the IDF is the enemy, and that would be biased. And so the IDF said, okay, well, we'll clear it to come in to Gaza and let you leave it sitting there in the hot sun if you want to. And that's exactly what the UN did for 2 months. All the time pushing this narrative that everybody in Gaza is starving and it's all Israel's fault and Israel is blocking the aid from coming in. They weren't blocking the aid. And when we went down there last week and broke that story and really started getting it out there into the news that look at there's 1,000 truckloads of aid here that have not been distributed. They're inside Gaza, but they've not been distributed. The UN finally turned around and started distributing it. And so I want to just show you what that looked like because the UN still refused to use Israeli safe areas to distribute or even safe corridors to get to the places where they wanted to distribute. Their Palestinian truck drivers just drove to wherever they were planning to distribute it. And so far, a grand total of all it's dozens of trucks that have gone in the last probably about 100 that have gone in the last couple of days that belong to the UN. This is aside from the GHF, system. Okay, just the UN, the World Food Program, those guys. Uh, so roughly 100 trucks that have gone in the last few days. Exactly zero of them have made it to the distribution point where they were planning on distributing it. And why? Because this is what it looked like. So this is a drone shot that was put out by GHF. There's actually a truck in that shot, right in the middle of the shot. I don't know if you can see that. These are all 100-pound sacks of flour, thousands of them. Everybody's carrying a sack of flour. I guess there's no hunger left in Gaza. Is there? Well, so these guys are just swarming on top of the trucks. Those trucks used to have pallets of aid on them, and now they just have pallets of people on them, sitting on top of the truck, riding along, cheering. I mean, this is Mad Max stuff. This is like out of Mad Max. I mean, this is crazy. And if you just take a look there, now this is obviously, excuse me, this is obviously near Khan Yunis. It's close to the beach. So it's dirty and dusty there in normal times too, but it's worse now because these areas are all bombed out. But if we continue watching here, you'll see. I mean, it is just like zombie apocalypse time. And this is what the UN said would be the safe way to deliver the aid. Look at this truck. It's got a tire that's blown and is still driving with all these guys sorting through the remnants of the rice or flour or whatever. And these guys riding on top of the truck. And look at that. Now let me just back up for a second. Look at this truck here. And look what's on the window, the windshield and the windows of the truck. They have to have cages around these trucks to keep the Palestinians from breaking the windows out. These are the trucks that are bringing them the food. This is where they're getting their food. And they would destroy the trucks if given the chance. Uh, and we saw indeed when I was in Gaza, we saw a lot of trucks that were actually destroyed, kind of left on the side of the road. And look at this. I mean, they're just piled up there like ants. And I guess they're going that direction, so they're just getting a ride, so they don't have to walk. So this is what we're looking at in Gaza today. That is the UN's version of a safe way to distribute the aid. Does that look safe to you? I can't show it on YouTube, but I told you about it last night. There's a video floating around of one of those trucks, and there's people crawling all over or whatever, and he's driving like 40 miles an hour, and a guy falls off and goes right underneath one whole side of that 18 wheeler and got killed. They're having people killed every day by these trucks. As a matter of fact, there was an Israeli kid that was killed today by one of those trucks as it was entering Gaza. He was trying to protest and stop the aid from going in because there's a lot of people here in Israel that are very upset about the fact that the IDF capitulated to Hamas and is now allowing aid in. And Hamas is claiming it as a victory. They're jumping up and down and said, "We won." As a matter of fact, they're starting to dictate terms now to Egypt and Qatar and places like that and saying, you guys need to step up. You're not supporting us enough. They obviously don't feel beholden anymore because Hamas is flush with victory at this point. And there are a lot of Israelis that are really teed off about the fact that Israel is allowing just flooding the zone with aid now and assisting in delivering the aid and even delivering it themselves via air, which is spectacularly stupid and expensive to do. And so they're upset, and there's even there are protest groups that are starting to form. I interviewed a lady from one of those groups today, and her name's Rachel, and she explained for me why they are so upset. So take a listen.
So we're sending soldiers to fight the enemy, they go to war and they sacrifice their lives. And on the second hand, we're sending them Hamas, everything they need in order to continue this war effort against us. This has been felt as an immoral act by many, many Israelis. And we've decided to spontaneously stand up and say no to that. What you see is basically a failure of Israel. I gotta say, we gotta admit, this campaign of the so-called hunger in Gaza, the famine in Gaza that we see online, the very old machine of propaganda that is, again, you cannot not feel bad when you see pictures of sick children that are shown as if they are starving, but beside them, you always see healthy parents. So what I wonder is, first of all, how can it be that no one acknowledged this? How no one just ask themselves, how can be that in Gaza you have a selective famine? Can it be? Is it possible that the child, and it's always one child and the other brothers are looking healthy, and nobody asks themselves question. There is this bias that the people who are anti-Israel want to believe. So they want to affirm their self-conviction and their self-beliefs regarding Israel. And what I said earlier is that I blame Israel for that. Why did it take a month and almost 2 months of this very heavy propaganda, Hamas, the NGOs, international NGOs, Amnesty, and so on, playing the book of Hamas, and backed up by the mainstream media, that all of them together worked against Israel in order to maintain the established rule in Gaza, which is Hamas. We are caving in to a campaign that is completely based on lies. We feel frustrated and we say it's weird. What we see right now, it appears that Trump is more pro-Israel than we are. Trump is more right-wing than the so-called right-wing government. And this is a problem when we don't see a clear path to this victory that Bibi keeps promising the public in Israel.
So that's pretty damning stuff, actually. You have to say these Israelis are saying this is what a loss looks like to us. Okay, is continuing to support our enemies and making it so that they can survive longer. And of course, I've not met anybody who is like, Yeah, I think all the children in Gaza should die of hunger. No, I mean they don't want the people in Gaza to die of hunger, but if why doesn't the Israeli government just do it like this? Why don't they say, I tell you what, we will give you 1,000 truckloads of aid for every hostage that you that you release. 1,000 truckloads of aid for every hostage you release. Take it or leave it. Until then, no aid's coming in. That's it. And the world body is like, oh, you're starving the children. No, we're not. We're willing to give them all the aid they want. All they have to do is just give us our hostages back. Why is that not a fair trade? Why would that be unjust, right? Now, Jonathan Conricus never disappoints. He's really good. And he went on some Sky News show or something in Europe and absolutely crushed the guy that was interviewing him and asking him, like, well, what do you mean? You want more force in Gaza, not less? Conricus gets it. What he says is that I don't want violence, I want victory. Take a listen.
To see Israel bringing more force into Gaza, despite the numbers that I've quoted to you, the tens of thousands that have been killed and the at least 20 hostages who are still alive and the 50 hostages that are being held by Hamas, you'd like to see there being more violence in that region from the Israelis to reach this end?
No, I'm not looking for violence. I'm looking for victory and I'm looking for safety for Israeli civilians so that in a few years from now, Israeli civilians living in their homes in the very same communities that were attacked by Hamas on October the 7th, unprovoked, when Hamas invaded into Israeli territory, we don't want that to happen again. And my understanding is, and this is shared by most military professionals around the world, is that until you defeat an enemy and until you get him to surrender, then you are again exposed. And I don't want my Israeli civilians to be exposed as they were on October the 7th. And I want to prevent that situation from happening. That is what this war is about. And I think missing from the conversation here is, what is Hamas and what are their goals? Are their goals the representation of the Palestinian people? Are they about prosperity and living peacefully side by side with Israel? No. Their goal is jihad. Their goal is the destruction of the entire modern state of Israel. Every man, woman, and child is a target of Hamas, and it's only a matter of capabilities. And what Israel needs to do is to make sure that they do not have neither the capability nor the political structure to do such a thing again. And in order to bring that reality about, Israel has to defeat Hamas. And I'm afraid that the current developments do not bring Israel closer to it, and it will make the region less secure until Hamas is defeated.
Okay.
You heard it. The current developments, which is the allowing of opening up the floodgates of aid, and they are not going to help get the hostages back. They're going to give Hamas a new lease on life. And Hamas, as I said, sees this as a victory. Now, let's go back to what they were actually showing the world over the last 2 months. So this is a kid that uh, he's been on every magazine cover. He's been in the front page of the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. This kid has got cerebral palsy, and he's sick. He's not. He's not starving to death. He's sick, but he's the perfect look for what they're. And this kid is famous, absolutely famous. Now there was another one that they showed, which was a video of a kid that was they said was dying of hunger, and this is a frame grab from that video. And this kid, well, guess what? It turns out somebody did some research and found out this kid's actually in Pakistan. That's what it says over here. They went back and found this from some time ago, and he's in Pakistan. So, as I keep saying, if there was really true starvation happening in Gaza, there wouldn't be any shortage of proof. Just like if the IDF was machine gunning civilians who were waiting in line. Did you see any lines here? Is that the line? Like where do I get in line here? Where's the line start? Now, if you're an Israeli position and you see a horde like this coming at your position, and they have you've put out the word already, do not approach within 300 meters of our positions, and you got a horde of these kids, coming at you. I would think you'd be justified under your rules of engagement to engage those people. But there's been very little of that. The only thing we've seen are videos that show the Israelis saying, "Don't shoot, don't shoot, don't shoot," as these people are cleaning out these trucks like locusts. So there's overwhelming evidence that this was a complete scam from start to finish. And I want to show you, I found this interesting video today on YouTube, and I linked it in the description of this video if you want to go watch the whole thing. This kid, he lives in Gaza. A lot of you have asked me questions about, like, what do people in Gaza do for a living? Well, this kid is a personal trainer, and he still has clients elsewhere in the world, and he's doing fitness training from Gaza and making money at it. Now, that means he's got electricity, he's got internet, and he's got a bank account with access to the internet so he can get the money out. That means there's an ATM machine somewhere around that's still working in Gaza or something. And I just want to show you a little piece of his videos. Fascinating video. I wish this kid had more videos out, actually, but he hasn't put any out in a while. This is a recent video he's put out, and I'm just going to show you just a minute of it. And if you want to see the rest, you can go watch it at the link in the description. So let me see where this guy is. Uh, where did he go? Is this it? No, that's starving Gazans. Oh, here it is.
Right now it's 6 p.m. By this time of the day, I usually got all of my tasks done, and I just go for a walk or maybe go to the roof for a bit, to take my mind off of everything that's been going on recently. So right now I'm going to the roof, and I'll take you guys with me. Bro, look at
Now, this guy's in Deir al-Balah. Okay, I'm just going to stop it right there because I want you to look closely at these. They look like almost like hard-sided tents. They're not. They're soft-sided tents. But this is a safe zone designated by Israel, or it was designated at some point by Israel as a safe zone. It may not be right now. And they've got their tents set up. They've got solar panels. They've got water tanks down here, those black tanks down in the foreground. And there's a bunch of guys playing volleyball. They have a volleyball net set up and they're kicking the volleyball around. So, okay, that's interesting. This is Deir al-Balah.
these guys just chilling and playing volleyball. I've always wondered why this area is called Deir al-Balah. Now, Deir al-Balah means the house of dates, or like the land of dates. And dates grow on palm trees. And look at this. There are so many.
Okay, so this is Deir al-Balah. Look, you got a lot of trees out there and intact buildings. I don't see any piles of rubble yet. So this is one of the less impacted parts of Gaza. But just so you can get some context here, you can actually see that not everything in Gaza is rubble yet. Okay, now the IDF is pushing into Deir al-Balah as we speak, and I'll talk about that more in just a minute.
Many palm trees, mashallah. Now, like you guys probably know, Deir al-Balah is one of the very few areas that are still in good condition in Gaza Strip. And honestly, the last time I saw such a view was back when I was in Rafah, before we evacuated from it in May 2024. Because before we evacuated from Rafah, the area was still in good condition and there weren't many bombings there. But right now, it's been over a year and Rafah is nothing but trouble. By the way, look how beautiful the sky is.
This is the view from his roof right there. I mean, come on. That is a beautiful sunset. That's one thing I always say about sunsets. Sunsets are God's gift to humanity. Uh, and the great thing about the gifts that God gives is that they know no class or creed or color or religion or uh, social standing or wealth or anything like that. The wealthy man and the poor man alike get to enjoy the sunset, and that is something else.
Oh wow, there's a bombing there and there.
So there's some fighting going on. Okay, so now I wanted to show you. Let me just comment on that for a second. I'd love to get a hold of this kid and interview him. And he seems like a good guy. I mean, you watch the video and you realize these are human beings, and they've got the same desires we do, and they have the same needs we do, and they there's got to be a lot of people in Gaza who are very tired of this, who would just love it to be over. But I want you to keep in mind, this guy's a military age male. He's fit and healthy, and if everybody's starving in Gaza, well, he probably would not be quite as fit and healthy. He actually, in this video, shows the workout that he does, lifting weights during the day. So and he's skinny. I mean, and he actually is very interesting. He counts all of his calories and reports. Okay, here's what I ate today, and I got this much protein. He does all his macros and this many carbs, and I ate grape leaves, and they're 13 calories each, and I had 35 of them, whatever. And so it's a fascinating look into what life is like in Gaza. But is that what you thought life would be like in Gaza? If you had to, what you had in your head based on the media exposure, would you have thought there would be guys playing volleyball down the street and a beautiful sunset from the patio up on the roof? I didn't. I mean, that's pretty fascinating. And this guy is online putting videos on YouTube and training people, doing fitness training with him. Maybe I should call him and get some workout tips or something. But keep in mind that Deir al-Balah is where they believe a lot of the hostages who are still living are being held. And if that's the case, then this kid could very well be living next door to somebody who's holding a hostage. And we don't know. He might be holding a hostage himself. I mean, you just don't know. But I guarantee you that if there are hostages being held in his neighborhood, which there are, that he has a pretty good idea of where they are. Now, what's keeping him from collecting that sweet, sweet $5 million bounty by just going to the IDF and saying, I know where you can find some of the hostages? Well, it's other videos that come out in Gaza and in social media that I can't show you here on YouTube of guys like that getting their legs broken or getting shot in the kneecaps by Hamas for collaborating with the enemy. Now, that doesn't mean that they aren't. There are Palestinians who are working with the IDF. And I've reported on this already before, but in Gaza, there are Palestinians on the payroll who are helping out the IDF, and that's a good thing. We need to see more of that. And apparently, this militia that took over a neighborhood down in Rafah in the south is doing pretty well. And they've got thousands of people living in there. They say there's no bombing, there's no crime. They say people can sleep at night. They're getting fed. They got medical care provided by the IDF in there. And it's all being secured by this Abu Saleh guy who and his clan that he put together. And they're asking for like some modicum of self-rule in whatever the day after looks like in Gaza. Well, that's not real likely, but we'll see what happens. Right now, today, as we speak, they are having meetings, I think in Qatar, between the Saudis and the Egyptians and a bunch of Arab states. And it was these meetings were boycotted by the U.S. and Israel because they're meetings about how to establish a Palestinian state. Now, I told you the Palestinians feel pretty heady right now because they moved the needle. They got Israel to capitulate in a fashion, after a fashion. Now, the capitulation is not that they're allowing more aid in than they were. They were letting as much aid in as they could bring, as could be brought in before. And we're talking about hundreds of truckloads a day at some point. So they haven't ramped up the amount of aid that they're allowing in or anything. It was already open. But the capitulation comes from them saying, we will declare 10-hour ceasefires, like they call them tactical pauses when they don't want it to sound like a ceasefire, but it's a ceasefire in certain areas of the strip where we will not operate. We will not have any bombs falling or drones or anything like that. And we're not going to come in there with tanks and start shooting up the place or anything like that. We'll leave those areas alone for 10 hours a day. And then the UN can go into those areas if they want and distribute all the food they want. So, but that is a concession to the United Nations. That's a concession to the countries who were calling on Israel to back off and stop pushing so hard against Hamas. And Hamas feels it already. As a matter of fact, there's in these photos here, if we go forward a little bit, these are some photos that were captured from Hamas fighters uh, just in the last day. And this is them underground cooking food, cooking a meal. They got a bunch of rice and vegetables there. They look very healthy, maybe even a little overweight, perhaps. There's a UN box back there of aid. There's one of the pizzas they made. It looks like a shakshuka. This is in the marketplace in Khan Yunis today. This video is from today in Khan Yunis. Does everybody look like they're starving? Let's go back that up a little bit. No, never mind. Does everybody look like they're starving? Doesn't look like it to me. They look very vigorous as they attack those trucks and start throwing aid off of them and stuff. So I don't have any doubt that they were uncomfortable. They probably did miss a few meals. This kid that put that video out I showed you, the fitness guru, was talking about how he had lost weight. He was talking about that some days he only gets about 900 calories, and then other days he'll get 2 or 3,000 calories to make it up, make up the difference. So he's worried about losing muscle mass, and if you're a bodybuilder, you would be worried about that kind of thing. But he's not going to starve to death, and he's not starving to death. His hair hasn't fallen out, his teeth aren't falling out. He's not starving. Okay, so Benjamin Netanyahu went yesterday to the Waldorf Astoria right down the hill from where I'm standing. And I was invited to go, but I didn't want to put pants on and yeah, I figured I'd get the video one way or another, and I didn't need to actually be there. And it turned out I was right. But I did walk by there when I was going to get tacos, and they had lots of security around and everything like that. So it wasn't there was a meeting there that was put on by a Israeli businessman, and he invited a bunch of Christian leaders. One of the people who came was Paula White. I think her name is Paula White. She's on the president's faith council, and some people say she's the president's pastor. She calls herself a pastor. Anyway, she was there. Bunch of Christian leaders. And yes, I went to Taco Luis. I absolutely did. And they were fantastic. Tacos Luis is wonderful. He didn't have any shirts that would have worked for me, but he has T-shirts that say Tacos make me happy, and I was going to get one and wear it on the live because tacos definitely do make me happy very much. So at that speech, Netanyahu addressed several different things, and the speech is absolutely fabulous. As a matter of fact, I just put up the entire speech. It's about 8.5 minutes on my channel here as a uploaded video, and put some B-roll on it and everything for you, so you can go watch the entire speech if you want to. And it's called the war for truth, or the war against truth, something like that. Just went up today. But I'm just going to show you a little excerpt of the speech where two things that he's addressing here. First is all of this propaganda that's been coming out lately in the news about Israel hates Christians. And there are these extremist Israelis who are illegally in the West Bank, and they are attacking churches and burning churches down and all this kind of stuff. Well, it turns out none of that stuff was true. It was all a hoax, complete fraud. But the damage was done, and there were articles in Christianity Today, and there were, just articles all over the place, and even the Pope was condemning Israel for not being friendly to Christians, and that came at a time when Ambassador Huckabee got sideways with the Israelis about a visa issue for Christians coming over here on pilgrimages. That's since all been fixed. He went high enough in the food chain and got somebody who could do something about it and got it fixed. That's great. That's what a ambassador ought to be doing. But all of this got jumped on by the media and elevated or sort of magnified into something that was much worse than it actually should have been. And so I want to show you what Netanyahu said about how Israelis feel about Christians. And then he talks a little bit about the aid situation in Gaza. So take a listen.
We're immersed in the Bible. We live the Bible. We have a future because we have a past. And that past is shared by millions, hundreds of millions around the world. And I want to thank you on behalf of the people of Israel and the Jewish people for that enduring friendship, which is the mainstay of our present and future ability to live in a free, prosperous, and peaceful world. But that bond is being challenged today. It is being challenged today by a fanatic fundamentalism, an Islamist fundamentalism that seeks to subjugate all Muslims that they view as infidels, eradicate the American and obviously the Israeli presence in the Middle East. They call America the great Satan. Israel is the small Satan, perhaps, but it's a small Satan standing in their way. And we fight them. We fight them together, as we recently have with President Trump's leadership and our partnership. And yet we see the effort to break down our bond in America, in other parts of the world. That partnership that promotes Judeo-Christian values, that protects in Israel Christians as nowhere else in the Middle East. That truth is being reversed, put on its head by a campaign of lies. Israel is now portrayed as the enemy of Christians, and the enemies of Christians are portrayed as the friends of the United States. Iran, a friend of the United States, an innocent victim. The Muslim Brotherhood, who chant death to America alongside Iran, friends of America. Hamas, these monsters who burned babies, raped our women, beheaded our men, and chant death to America, friends of America. Israel has a thriving Christian community, the only thriving Christian community in the broad radius of the Middle East, where Christians are not tolerated, they're cherished. You can light Christmas trees in Nazareth, but in Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus, When Israel left and the Palestinian Authority came in, the Christian majority shrank from 80% to under 20% because there was no more Israel to protect them. We cherish our Christian friends. We protect the Christian holy sites, not only the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, but in the Galilee, not only in Nazareth, but in the Galilee, in Capernaum, where Jesus preached for 3 years. We uphold and cherish those sites. So Israel, the guardian of Christianity in the Middle East, is presented on American television by purchased influencers. It's presented as the enemy of Christianity. What
Tucker Carlson.
folly, what lies, what a travesty of truth. So one of the things we have fought now, a 7-front war, we have an 8th front, and that is the front and the battle for truth.
All right, man. I tell you what, I get goosebumps. Now, I'm not a fanboy of Netanyahu, and I don't agree with everything that he thinks and does, but dang, that guy's a good speaker. He did all that with no notes. He went on for 10 minutes. No notes, no teleprompter, right off the cuff. He didn't stutter, he didn't stammer, he didn't say he did nothing. And every word of that was just it sounded heartfelt. It's no wonder that he is popular in Israel, uh, especially right now in a time of war. But did you hear what he said there? He actually, I'm kind of wondering if he took a swipe at President Trump in that, in just the subtlest of ways, just the subtlest of ways, when he said, our enemies are being portrayed as our friends, and our friends are being portrayed as our enemies now. And he went on to talk about Iran, a friend to America. And so who's been meeting with Iran lately? Oh, that would be Steve Witkoff, the useless envoy of President Trump, who has really accomplished a whole lot of nothing. He then goes on to mention the Muslim Brotherhood, friend of America. They're not friends of America, but you know who he's talking about there? He's talking about Turkey. Turkey is well, and yeah, they are like the center of Muslim Brotherhood theology, and it's part and parcel of their government under Recep Tayyip Erdogan. They are Muslim Brotherhood. That's who he's talking about. And President Trump has been cozying up to Turkey, and well, we hope Turkey will help out with what's going on in Syria, and we want Turkey to. The Kurds are over there going, "Whoa, hold on, we're your friends, and you're hanging us out to dry here because the Turks will murder all of us." So I thought that was like that was a very subtle, and I doubt Trump would catch it. And maybe I'm just reading into it too much. I could be, but I was like, wow, he's not just giving you your typical politician pablum. That's the thing. I normally just hate listening to politicians because they're just so vapid, and they're so good at saying a whole lot of words without any substance, not saying anything at all. But that speech, you should go listen to the whole thing. That speech was not vapid. He laid it out and made the case that, and I don't know if he's just, I don't think so, but I don't know if he's just now realizing this or what, but that the information battle space is the most important battle space of all. If they hadn't figured that out by now, what just happened in Gaza basically will have been a very tough lesson for the way for them to learn that. Right now, okay, I'm going to get the questions here for the last 15 minutes. So if you have any questions or comments that you think I should comment on, Put them in the chat over here, and Connie will put them on a document for me, and I will go over there and answer all your questions. So we're going to do that here in just a second. But first, I've had a lot of people. Today's my last day in Israel. I'm leaving tomorrow morning, and I've had a lot of people since the beginning of the war who said, like, "Are you crazy going to Israel? Like, it's a war. There's a war on there." I talked to the lady at the VA a couple days ago and told her, "Yeah, I'm in Israel right now." And she's like, "Oh my goodness, are you safe? Oh, I hope you're okay. It's a war zone. Oh, you're so brave to go to the war zone." Well, let me just show you the view that I had from where I ate dinner tonight, which is just right back that way, uh, about a quarter mile or a half mile. Uh, because I'm gonna have to turn the audio down so I don't get a copyright strike on YouTube for the music. So you're not going to be able to hear the music, but there's hard driving thump 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 music in here. Uh, so watch this. These guys are doing Zumba. This is the war zone of Israel right now. Yep, yep. It's quite a war zone. And look, there's people, there's kids running around. There were some girls in the back that were doing Zumba while they were licking ice cream cones, which I thought was hilarious. And they're all just having a good old time, just doing their Zumba out there. And people were joining in. Look at the old guy. And you know what? There's Jews, there's Christians, and I think I even saw a Muslim or two in that crowd at one point who are all there together, just doing their thing. And this is the war zone that is Jerusalem. Now, I have to tell you, I would rather be in Gaza than be doing Zumba. I mean, if it came down to it, you can either go to Gaza or you can do Zumba. I would be in Gaza, no question, because Zumba is of the devil, I think. Just because I'm genetically incapable of rhythm. So I was just born without any rhythm, and I can't even hardly clap my hands to the beat of the music. So yeah, I'm not a Zumba guy, but so there you go. There's Israel. All right, now we got 3,000 people online. Why have you not all hit the like button? I put a lot of work into this. You ought to be hitting that like button, folks. So please do that. Let's go over to the where's my document? Everybody's like, why don't you bring that document up before? Because I got 900 windows open on my computer. Okay, so all right, here we go with the questions for tonight. But again, don't forget to hit the like button, folks. It does make a difference. And make sure you go over to chuckholton.com as well and sign up over there. But man, if you haven't subscribed, get us over 200,000. We're like 300 short or something. I don't know if we made it or not. Uh, so, all right. Now let's go to our questions here. Solving Politics says Gaza can get all the weapons they want, but no food. Well, they don't get all the weapons they want because if they had all the weapons they want, they would have defeated Israel. They would have turned Israel into a smoking ruin. And that's something that Jonathan Conricus brings up on a regular basis that I think is important to repeat. If, Israel has the capability to genocide Gaza. If they wanted to, they have the wherewithal to carpet bomb Gaza, to actually carpet bomb Gaza and turn it into a complete wasteland. And if they had to, kill everybody there. But they don't. And there are more people in Gaza today than there were at the beginning of the war. So they're pretty bad at genocide if that's what they're doing in Gaza, right? I mean, they're just not very good at it. However, if the roles were reversed and Hamas was in the position that Israel is in, Israel would be no more. They would have gladly carpet bombed Israel. They tried. I mean, more than 30,000 rockets fired at Israel. That's if that's not carpet bombing, what is, right? So bears keeping in mind that Israel is the adult in the room here. Arnold Floyd says, I thought Trump said this morning the U.S. was going to help deliver food. Well, I think what he's talking about is the GHF there because the U.S. is paying for all that aid. That's right, out of your tax dollars. And they've gone over $100 million now that they've spent delivering aid to people. Uh, you can think what you want about that. I kind of tend to side with the Sob 9 people and say all you're doing is drawing out the misery, and not just for the Palestinian people, but for your hostages. So there's that. Now, Michelle Antico says, what's the story about Huckabee telling Trump about the starvation in Gaza being a Hamas false story, and then Trump giving the media a quote saying there is starvation in Gaza? Well, let's just chalk that up to President Trump is not the speaker that Bibi Netanyahu is, and he doesn't often get it, he has trouble getting his words out correctly sometimes or clearly sometimes. I'm going to just chalk it up to that. But I did, and look, he's not wrong. I mean, there are people going hungry in Gaza. That's a distribution problem, not a supply problem. And Israel is not responsible for the distribution. This is the thing that, like, the media just can't wrap their head around. Israel is a combatant in this process. Show me another war, anytime in history, where the combatant had the obligation to give aid and comfort to the enemy while he was trying to defeat the enemy. You can't win a war that way. You just can't. And that's what makes people here in Israel so mad about Israel backing off a little bit and deciding to do these humanitarian pauses and everything. Is they're like, you're just losing more slowly. You're not winning. So Trump was not completely wrong there. I mean, there certainly are people that are hungry in Gaza, but all of that is the fault of Hamas. It's not the fault of the IDF. Is Israel losing the information war at this point? Yes, they are. And what should they be doing better? They should be allowing me to go into Gaza and embed with one of their units and put out the video of what they are doing. Show the good work. Show how they're not killing people. Show how they're not running people over with tanks. They should be putting a journalist with every unit in the IDF. And people say, well, that would be a lot of resources. We don't have the resources to support that. Did you not hear what Netanyahu just said? This is an eighth front of the war. This eighth front, the information war, Israel has like 12 people fighting against every journalist in the world practically, because they're just not putting the time and effort and resources into fighting the information war. Now, they've ramped it up in the last week. I'll give them that. The IDF has really stepped it up a notch, trying to overcome this famine rhetoric. And they've largely gotten the word out that the famine is fake. But that didn't stop them from capitulating to some extent. And this is what's just so frustrating. It's like if they were serious about fighting on the eighth front of the war in the information battle space, and that should be the first front you're fighting in, then they would muster the resources to allow a journalist to go in with every company or every brigade of troops that they have in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria and in Syria and everywhere else. Because the Israelis, look, I've been around them enough that I believe them when they say they are the most moral military on planet Earth. I believe that. They really are. Because I've spent enough time with them not on the front lines, but behind, in Israel, to know that, yeah, they do things very humanely, as humanely as possibly can be done to uh, fight a war. But they won't give me the resources to tell that story from Gaza, which is where it needs to be told. And so there are some people in the IDF and in the upper echelons who just don't understand how big a deal the information battle space is. And so they're fighting it with their, one hand and both legs tied behind their back. And that's unfortunate. Knots and Crosses said, do you believe Muslims are in majority peaceful? Well, yeah, there's a billion of them. But if there's a billion of them and most of them are peaceful and only 1% of them are not, that's still millions of people, right? I mean, well, a million, 10 million, 10 million people, 1% of a billion. What is that? Ben, how'd they get food before the war? It was carted in through the same methods that they're bringing in now. Uh, and they did grow more of their own food in Gaza before the war than they do now. And they're still growing some food because, like I said, the guy on that video was showing grape leaves and stuff like that. They're probably growing that in Gaza. That's not real hard to grow. I'd have S2 says, why is there still Israelis that believe the IDF must withdraw from Gaza? I understand they want their hostages back, but what about the safety of the rest of Israel? Well, they are prioritizing the hostages over their own country, which is a backwards way to look at it. And for some reason, they've convinced themselves that if Israel would just lose the war, if they would just capitulate to Hamas, then Hamas would be reasonable and they would give their hostages back. But they won't. They won't. And even President Trump is figuring that out now. Susan Sotelo says, do they get paid to keep hostages? Yes, I'm sure they do. Tinks82 says, why aren't people mad at Egypt for closing their border? Well, Hamas is mad at Egypt for closing their border, and they're calling on Egyptians and other people, jihadis from all over the globe, to come to Egypt, and they've been calling on their Telegram channels. We want 100,000 jihadis to come to the southern gates at Rafah and burst the gates open. Jonathan Conricus and others in the Israeli government have said, if we're going to open the gates to Rafah, the Rafah gates to Egypt, and let them bring aid in directly from Egypt, then they should be able to let Gazans go out into Egypt and leave. They need to be able to claim asylum, flee Gaza if they want to. Purely voluntary, but they should be able to do that. And Egypt's like, nope, not happening. We're not taking. And the reason has less to do with Egypt saying we are full, sorry, no vacancy, and more to do with Egypt saying Hamas and the Palestinians in Gaza are a weapon that we use in the Arab Muslim world to bludgeon Israel with. So if the Gazans all leave Gaza, then we won't have that weapon anymore. And they won't come out and say that, but that's the reason why they don't want Gazans to leave Gaza. George, I mean, I kind of chuckle when some people are saying, well, you can't make them leave. That's their land. It's it's their home, their homeland. Well, that's not what they were saying on October 6th. The Palestinians on October 6th were saying Israel is our homeland. Israel is our land, and this is not our land. And that's why we're refugees here, even though we were all born here and our grandfathers were actual refugees. But, we've been here for generations now. But this isn't our land. Gaza is not our land. This is a camp. It's a concentration camp that's surrounded by Israel. Our land is actually Israel. That's what they were saying before the war. Now you're hearing all these pundits going, they can't make the Gazans leave Gaza. That's their land. Come on. As Chuck talked about the aid flotilla, the IDF intercepted over the weekend. No, I haven't, but there was another ship full of patchouli smoking, happy naked pagan dancing, frog licking, tree hugging, dirt worshiping hippies who decided they were going to run the blockade and go to Gaza and take them, 12 boxes of aid or something. And Israel's like, again, all right, we're doing this again. So as soon as they get close, Israel sends a ship out there and they board the little dinghy and they steered it into the port of Ashdod. It didn't have any big celebrities on it, like what's her face, Greta Thunberg or whatever this time. But they steered it into Ashdod, took all the aid off, and apparently found like six, I don't know, units of some sort. I don't know what unit they were talking about, but six of them in the body cavity of one of the people on the ship. They in Okay, so they were searching body cavities now. Wow, that's interesting. I have a feeling those guys are not going to want to try that stunt again if they're going, okay, welcome to Israel, bend over. Wow, yikes. That would that certainly discourage me, I promise. Uh, okay, so and one other thing that's just a side note that I thought was interesting. They found a lion in Judea a couple days ago, a lion cub. And this lion cub was about 3 feet tall and about 6 feet long. So it's a big lion cub, female looked like. And it was chained up in somebody's backyard in Judea. And the IDF, I don't know if they were on a mission or what, somebody went climbing over the fence and like, holy, there's a lion in there. So they confiscated the lion. But the most interesting part of the story to me was that just a little footnote at the end of the news article said this was the sixth lion that they have captured from Judea and Samaria this year. I'm like, what? There were six of them? Like, this is a thing? People have a lion in their backyard? What? That's crazy. Um, why don't they let women collect the food? I see only, Bonnie asks, I only see a rare woman because the women would get trampled to death. If you see those trucks that are crawling with men to get the aid, not to mention the fact that a lot of those sacks of flour and stuff are 100 pounds. So a woman is not likely to be able to haul that thing. So the men do it. Prior something 2000 says, how do you feel about religious limitations? All religions in America, Muslims can be peaceful. In numbers, they pose an issue here. Yeah. I mean, that's something that needs to be addressed. It doesn't need to be addressed by taking away their First Amendment rights. But for example, it could be addressed by just enforcing the noise ordinances around the mosques. You are not allowed to broadcast from the minaret of your mosque on a loudspeaker 5 times a day at ear bleeding levels of volume. You're just not allowed to do that. If you want to have a guy climb up on the top on the roof of your mosque and go, sing like he's strangling a cat for 5 minutes, 5 times a day, knock yourself out, man. Get up there and right? And okay. But you can't amplify his voice because the Muslims believe that any place that is within hearing of the Muslim call to prayer belongs to the what they call it, the Ummah, belongs to the Muslim Caliphate. Anywhere in the world, right here in Jerusalem, they built a mosque right next to a church. You'll often see that here in Israel. The Muslims will build a mosque right next to the church, and then they blast their call to prayer over that church. And what they're doing is they're saying, we've conquered that church, that we own all of this. Anybody that can hear us from our super loud loudspeaker belongs to Islam, and that land can never be given back. Up in the Christian Maronite village of Jish, there's a Maronite Christian church that's been there for 100+ years, and there's a new mosque right next to it, up the hill a little higher. And they wait until there's a service going on at the church, and then they just crank it up and oh, and start, strangling the cat right there just to rub your nose in it a little bit. So I think that's an issue that they could address for sure. So, and the best way to address that? Have babies, because the Muslims believe in conquest through procreation. That's one of the ways that they believe in conquest. And the average Muslim woman has a lot more kids than the average American woman does, a non-Muslim American woman. And so if you don't want your state or your town or your country to become a Muslim country, then you have to outbreed those people or stop them from coming in to begin with. And I'm not sure which of those would be more challenging, more difficult. But man, the U.S. demographic rate is dropping to is below 1.6, and that means that's terminal decline. Like you stay below 1.6 for very long, and there's no coming back from that. You cannot recover. So America will be owned by people who have babies. Give it 25 or 50 years. Uh, Stealth Drone Tech says, what about the Great Prince being voted to take Iran leadership? Because happened yesterday in Germany, I guess. I didn't see that. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Heartbeat says, will you post the entire videos with the IDF colonel, including all the reporters' questions at Kerem Shalom Crossing? Yeah, I can. I can do that. Rosa says, any news on the hostages? No, no news. They did find the remains of one IDF soldier that they were missing, but I don't think that was one of the hostages. Ruth Tice says, what's going on right now with the Druze in Syria? Apparently, they are being blockaded by the uh, government forces. They're not letting people in or out. They're only allowing staple foods and no medical supplies, no fuel or anything like that into Sweda. And so that's not over yet down there at all. Barb's Skulls asks, is it true Turkey used to be a tolerance for different beliefs and women's rights? Yes, it did. I've been to Turkey several times, and it was a wonderful place. And when Erdogan took over, everything changed. And even just saying that makes it so that I probably would be arrested if I ever went to Turkey again while he's in power. Just saying something negative about him. Oh, they were painting out here, and the paint is killing me. Chuck, have you noticed your Israel's lucky charm? Yes, I have. When I'm here, nothing happens. What happened to the Gaza invite? Would you come back if they invited you? Yes, I would, and I've told them so. So I'm working on that. I'm trying to work it out. How much does each of those airdrop parachutes cost, and are they reusable? No, they're not reusable, and they're very expensive. And the meals that are dropped, Marcos, by parachute that way cost somewhere around $1,000 a meal. That's ridiculous. Can we see more of Gaza? Still trying to see the open air prison. Yeah, I'm going to keep trying to show you that kind of context for sure. Guns Blazing says, is there another country in modern history that supplies the enemies with aid and food? No, there's not. Lori W says, is Hamas still taking the food to sell to the people? They are now. Today they did. Rui Marcus Pinto says, two Israeli soldiers are in Belgium arrested. They're accused with crimes against humanity. Well, the Israelis are pretty upset about that for sure, and that's one of the reasons why the IDF won't allow journalists to show the face of any IDF soldier anymore, other than like the press secretary or whatever, the public affairs person, because if his face shows up on a video and he's in Gaza or he's in uniform, there are countries around the world that are finding that stuff and saying, "Aha, we see you were in Gaza. You're an IDF soldier. Therefore, ipso facto, you're guilty of war crimes just for being there." Guy could have been a clerk or a truck driver or something. They'd accuse him of war crimes. The Houthis are doing this now. They're ramping things up and saying, "Okay, now we're going to attack all the ships. We're going to just attack all the ships because all the ships at one point or another either went by Israel, thought about Israel, had an Israeli on board, had products that ended up in Israel or came from Israel on it. So we're just going to go after all the ships now." The Houthis are really desperate for more attention, and I think the IDF will soon be giving them more attention. Um, who's shooting the Gazans at the GHF? Nobody. People are not being shot at the GHF distribution sites. They're being shot within a mile of the distribution sites, and it's not the Israelis doing the shooting, but the news reports if they're shot within a mile of the distribution point, then the Gaza Health Ministry says those people died waiting in line for food. Well, it's just not true. Wildcat 777 says, why doesn't some of the neighboring countries to Gaza free them? Why is it always, or feed them? Why is it always on the USA's back? Yeah, good question. Why does the USA always have to pay for all that stuff? Any news about the flotilla? Already got that. Has Greece done anything about the Greek flagship, the Houthis sunk? Nope, they have not, Brian. And Brian also asks, is the Hebron peace accord still developing? I don't know. There was a Israeli in Hebron that his car was attacked today and smashed up by a bunch of angry Palestinians. So doesn't sound like things are going swimmingly over there. Mosh says 2,000 Moroccan troops fighting for Israel. Really? You saw that on YouTube? Send me the link. I've not heard about that. Israel doesn't really allow foreign fighters. They will allow people who are Jewish, who have dual citizenship, like in the United States and Israel both, to fight in the IDF. But I don't know that they allow just anybody to come join the IDF. I know people who have tried and failed at that. Okay, question. Varig arrested 20 teens for being Jewish. No, that's Whaling, not Varig. Whaling. They didn't arrest him. They kicked him off the flight. They arrested the camp counselor when she got off the flight because uh, she wouldn't hand over her phone to have it wiped. So so they arrested her and they wiped all the kids' phones. So Jews definitely are less safe in Europe and in the USA than they have been in a long time. There are many Jews. The stories coming out every day now of Jews getting attacked or harassed all over the globe. Paul Clement says, "What do you think of that family from the States who moved to Russia and the father went to the front line?" That was a bad life choice on his part. That's what I think about it. Okay. That's all the questions we got today, and we are definitely over an hour. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate all of you. Please go visit our sponsors over at Preserve Gold. I forgot to put up the link here, but it's preservegold.com/hot zone. And go get your physical gold and silver. That's a good place to get it. I'm going to get some too. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Please hit the subscribe button so we can get over 200,000. We're just right there. We're so close. God bless you.